calling to order at 7:06. The agenda will be shared in a moment. Okay. And apologies for the rush. For some reason, the 5 o'clock train just wasn't there. And you look on the sign and it says 5:30. I'm like, that's not good. One moment. I am trying, I swear Zoom and I are going to need to break up. Well, I cannot see any hands, but I think first we're going to take attendance. Then there will be public comment. If Madam Secretary, you could take the roll, and I'm going to try to figure out Zoom again.
All right. Can you hear me?
We can.
All right. Arrowwood, I'm here. Bracos at the delivery room, I believe. So he's not here right now. Cizelski?
I am here.
All right. Carlos?
Present.
Latham?
Here.
Martin?
Present.
Dr. Moulton?
Here.
Tom Rowlett? I believe he's here. Tom Rowlett?
I'm here.
All right, thanks. Mike Rufo?
I will text him.
All right. And Mike Seebeck?
Yo.
All right. Madam Chair, we have two not here, Bracco and Rufo. And Bracco would be replaced by Data Logan.
And I believe Data is here. I see several alternates here. Did you call
Data
the alternates?
Logan and Dean Rogers is who I have.
Okay.
So Data's number 5.
Okay.
And Dean Rogers, number 6, would move into the Rufo spot.
Is Frank Martin here?
He is.
I
Okay,
am.
because he had, okay, because yeah, okay, you got the link then. Okay, cool.
Thank you. Thank you.
I had Zoom resend it to him. Just so everyone's aware, you can't really share links with people because it's customized to you. When there's a registration, it's not a general link. But I saw the email right before the meeting started. Mr. Rufo will be here in a few moments.
Okay.
So now it is time for public comment, and I did see, oh yes, there it is, Mr. Jacobs.
Yes. Madam Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I will not be able to stay for the meeting, but I did want to address something that did happen at the last meeting, which was the discussion of suspension of the rules. And in the bylaws, which I believe was brought up as a defeated proposition, I did want to assure everyone that a bylaw in the nature of a rule of order can only be suspended during a meeting. It cannot be suspended beyond that particular meeting, that particular session. You could technically suspend the bylaws, for example, or the bylaw that the chair or the secretary takes the minutes of the meeting for an entire convention. But you could not suspend it beyond that, and the convention could not suspend that for the board. The proposal that was made talked about preventing something from being suspended outside of the meeting. That would not have been possible and is not possible even without that amendment. So I wanted to be clear on that. I think unless there are any questions, if the chair wishes to ask for a clarification, or somebody would wish to ask a question through the chair, that would be about it.
Yeah, I had saw a discussion on that very point, along with some other discussions in which the discussion got shut down, on the Roberts Rules Forum. So I thank you for that clarification.
Okay.
And Mr. Rufo is here and Mr. Roberson came in.
Madam Chair, if I could just continue, since you did mention it.
Yes.
I would also note that there is an article in the current National Parliamentarian, which is online, and I believe I've linked to it in the past, which basically says the same thing. And for once, I did not write that article. Okay? So you can actually see a peer-reviewed article about this, which I believe says the same thing and would talk about the same situation.
Appreciate it. And
that's it for me.
An article I would like you to send me if you have it. I saw that you mentioned called Standing for Interrogation.
Okay, I will send you out a copy of that.
Yeah, I would love to see that. That was a new concept to me.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Jacobs, Ms. Arrowwood.
I was just going to report that Mr. Roberson was now here.
And Mr. Rufo is here as well.
Okay, I've got that. Thank you.
So who then, there's the one spot for Mr. Bracco. Is that Mr. Logan filling in or Mr.
No,
Roberson?
Roberson, David Roberson would be, he's number 2 on the list.
Isn't,
Yeah, apologies for logging in late, but I'm here now.
is he still number 2 or is he now number 1?
I'm the number 1 alternate now that Mr. Moulton has
Mr.
been moved up.
Tomaso is number 1. Rich Tomaso.
Yeah, he's never come to a meeting, so
But
effectively.
he was number 2, so I moved him up to 1.
Okay. And that was actually something I was, well, that'll be subject for another day. Okay, any further public comment? And remember that would include by committee members if it's something that doesn't look like it's going to reasonably come up on the agenda. This moment, I see your share request, Frank. I will do that for you. Okay. Ms. Arrowwood, did you intend to still have your hand up?
No.
All right. Before we, there's several things here to, before we get started. I wanted to bring back up, and it'll be up to the committee whether you want to discuss it now or in the future on the list. Timing. I know this was somewhat of a controversial issue before, but we are now into November. And we have, what are we up to? Oh, 1 second. QQ. So 26, what? I'm not good. We have, there's 26, we've got like 38 proposals. Now, some of those are going to be combined, you know, into one. It will collapse down a little bit. And we have 4 hours. And I believe the average time estimate that I think, and I'm being really optimistic, was 15 minutes per proposal. Some will be faster, some will be longer because there's that 10-minute privileged point of time where proposals get debated without amendment, then it's opened up for another amount of time. If you assume that there's no amendments and questions get called immediately, which I suppose could happen right away too, you're still not looking at shortening it much more, which means that realistically, we're going to get to 2 for 16 proposals. Maybe we say 20. And again, that would include the ones that are collapsed down. I do think we're at a point, and it's going to be up to you guys, that we need to start making decisions and working on finalizing and prioritizing. Now, I know we've got a bunch more proposals left, and it is absolutely the right of the committee to hear them all, but it's also the right of the committee to make a decision otherwise. And also, I wanted to offer this to the committee. I would never bring this up on my own, but we're not allowed to create standing rules of our own. However, if this committee thinks we would benefit in getting through the rest of these proposals quickly by being able to move to end debate or other things we normally could not do, I will bring that request to the LNC as the appointing body and ask them to allow us to create those rules in order to do that. I'd never do that on my own, but if it's the will of a majority of this body that I bring that request to the LNC, I will. So that's something to think about. If someone would like me to do that, you're going to need to make a motion asking me to do that. I'm not going to do it on my own. So I'd like you all to think of that, think about that, and we can discuss it now. We can discuss it later. My recommendation is, and I see the two hands and I'll get right to you, is that we continue the rest of November hearing proposals, and then we cut off to get to a report and maybe hear more afterwards, but start making decisions in December. Remember, I originally recommended that we cut off beginning of November, but there was lots of protests. I saw that wasn't popular, but the committee needs to start taking a handle on this timing right now. I know people are thinking we have until May. Do we really? I'll justify it further if there's questions. I saw Mr. Seebeck's hand first and then Ms. Arrowwood. Mr. Seebeck.
Okay, a couple of things. Number one, I know I'm getting a case of proposal fatigue. We've got too many. And I've got a platform committee coming up, starting up after the end of the year. Plus, I've got my state bylaws committee to deal with, which is on an earlier time frame than the national one because of our state convention and dealing with all of our delegate selection, all those details. So I've got plenty of things on my plate besides just this at the same time, not to mention ramping up for teller stuff coming into the new year and so on. So here's my question. What's left on proposals? What do we have? What are we looking at for what's remaining in the list at this point?
If you
and
would,
the relation to hold on. And relation to that also is there a way we could just say that, look, we recognize that these are issues, log them as such, and then not even as not as a mandate to the next bylaws committee or anything, but just as a note to them as saying, hey, these are the things we found to think about for the next committee if we don't get through everything.
Thank you, Mr. Seebeck. We'll go through the agenda after we hear from Ms. Arrowwood and anyone else from the committee that wants to speak. But let me answer your second question. I intend, and I would hope that future chairs of both platform and bylaws would do this. I think it's good practice. I intend upon doing, like we do in Colorado, a post-convention report that will get passed along to the next committee. It will not have mandates. It'll just be, this is what we saw, this is what we did, this isn't what got passed, this is maybe why this didn't get passed. It's common practice for us to do that in Colorado. I've never seen that done on national, and I do think that's best practice, and I fully intend upon doing that.
I'm doing it on platform, I know that.
Ms. Arrowwood. Ms. Arrowwood, you're muted.
I wanted to suggest that perhaps we enable call the question to this committee, because I know we have good intentions about moving along, but there's always a chicane or two in the road, and it doesn't seem like we meet our time schedules. So I think it would be a good thing to enable call the question, or to ask the LNC if we could enable to call the question.
Are you making that motion to direct the chair to ask the LNC for consent for the bylaws committee to pass a special rule of order allowing us to limit or end debate?
Yes, I am.
I'm going to assume there is going to be an objection on that. Mr. Latham, I see you have your hand raised. I don't know if it was raised before Ms. Arrowwood made her motion, so I do have you down for the main discussion, but did you also wish to speak on this?
No, I support the ability to have us call the question, but it's on a related but different topic.
Well, rather than, I'm assuming there's going to be an objection. Is there an objection? Just verbalize it.
Could I get a point of information first?
Sure, Dr. Moulton.
What would be the time frame for this? For myself, I would have no objection if that new rule took effect after the end of November, but I would like to still consider things in November, basically. So my objection would be based on the timing. How fast would it happen?
Ms. Arrowood, what is your intent for me to bring this to the LNC right away or next month?
I think the next meeting of the LNC is either the 11th or 12th.
It is.
And then that would put us to the last meeting in November. But I would say maybe December 1st is a good date that would stick in everyone's head, hopefully.
Yeah, I would have no objection if the committee asked the LNC to do that with an effective date of December 1st or something like that.
This is not something I've ever done before, so I might be incorrect. I think if we got consent from the LNC to pass that rule, we would still have to pass it. So we could get consent from the LNC and then pass it when we wanted to.
Yeah, I would have no objection to that.
Okay. Ms. Arrowood, did you have your hand raised again for your motion?
Yes, I wanted to mention that even if we were enabled to use this call the question, it doesn't mean we have to. We could always vote it down.
And it would require 2/3.
Yes.
All right. Is there any objection to Ms. Arrowood's motion to direct the chair to continue in that manner? All right. Hearing none, I will give notice for the next LNC meeting to make that request to them and do a little research to make sure I'm making the request properly. And Roberts. So now, Mr. Latham, you wanted to speak on the discussion item.
Yes, and just looking at the spreadsheet of master proposal spreadsheet, I see 15, 16 proposals left, which by my math, if we're going through on average about one a meeting, I think that's 8 months, and we probably don't have 8 months. And so that's just one observation. And the other, I believe, haven't we had a discussion about using some kind of sorting process so this committee could rank how we wanted to tackle remaining proposals? And so just I throw that out there. I don't know how but I don't know what the committee is inclined to do on that front, but that was one idea I had to prioritize our remaining work.
To answer your question, proposals are heard in the order unless there's a motion to amend the agenda. We will take more time sorting than we will just hearing them, in my opinion. If someone wants to change the order, they can make a motion to do so. Otherwise, they appear on the agenda with the rare exceptions, such as the one I'm bringing forward tonight, because it's going to be the subject at the LNC meeting. They're going to be heard in the order in which they were received, but the committee member can always make a motion. Ms. Arrowood, your hand is still raised. Okay, it is down. I'm going to leave the discussion there. The committee can see where we're going, and we have this pending request to the LNC, which maybe could speed things up, and we be finished by the end of the year. I'd like you all to think about this, though, because I do think this is where our aspirations have to meet reality. And we're going to move on. The agenda, as I had informed the list, I had moved a proposal up, but this is somewhat of a implied motion to amend the agenda. If the committee objects to me moving this up, let me know now. Otherwise, we're going to proceed with this particular proposal. The rationale for moving it up is this is a current controversy. And before the LNC makes all kinds of pronouncements and things, if the bylaws committee is on it to bring something to the delegates, I think that will help grant some stability and cool everyone's jets a bit. I can, without giving affiliate names, because it's just not important. It could happen with multiple affiliates. What the issue is, at least one affiliate has amended their bylaws to allow them to nominate candidates from a duopoly party. There's all kinds of questions now as to the wording of our current bylaws. There's dispute as to what it actually means, and we need some clarity here. So that is why this is moved forward, and I will put up the proposal. This is the latest one from myself and Mr. Latham, kind of co-worked on this. This isn't the latest one, is it?
Yeah, that's the
Oh,
fifth
it is.
substitute.
Okay, for some reason I got super confused. So this is the one I'm going to move. The current language, and I'm speaking to it at this point, it says no affiliate party shall endorse a candidate who is a member of another party for public office in any partisan election. No affiliate party shall take any action inconsistent with the statement of principles or these bylaws. Where the tremendous vagueness has come in is, what does it mean to be a member of another party? And there's been all kinds of debate over this over the decades, because other parties don't necessarily have membership in the same way we do. As far as I can ascertain, the intent of this bylaw was to not be able to endorse candidates of a duopoly party, even if it's worded unclearly. When there's an ambiguity, you try to interpret the bylaw in the sense in which the spirit in which it was adopted. And from all that I can tell, unless someone has some other evidence to the contrary, that was the intent. And while it might be vague as to what a member of another party is, I think it should be relatively obvious that if it's somebody getting the nomination of another party, that for all intents and purposes, they are a member of another party. Like, if membership means anything, it should at least mean that. I think it could be questionable if there's somebody that just attends the local R&D meeting as to whether they're a member. But if they're officially endorsed candidate, to me, it seems pretty obvious that's what it means. And that has been the interpretation of this bylaw. Where it also has caused controversy is fusion. And it seems also to be pretty much agreed that states that have fusion have been violating this bylaw. However, no LNC has seen fit to make an issue of it, but it also shouldn't be a sword of Damocles over these fusion the fusion states, because they've kind of gotten away with it if it is a violation of the bylaw for years and years, and you don't want an LNC that just happens to not like a particular state to use it as a club or a threat of disaffiliation. I think we need to clarify this one way or another, particularly in light of the current controversy and the decades-long controversy over fusion candidates. So the motion is to strike out who is a member of another party for public office in any partisan election, and insert, unless the candidate (A) is a member of the party or the affiliate party, B is not listed under any other partisan ballot line unless the candidate is also listed under the affiliate party's ballot line, and C is registered to vote under the partisan designation of the affiliate party if available. I don't know whose hand was up first. I think it was Mr. Latham. So
No, it was Rufo.
okay, Mr. Rufo.
Okay, I'm more of a question than talking to it. So essentially, I've read it before. I'm listening to you explain it now. What this does is just make it more than obvious, because I agree with you that it's pretty obvious that if you're nominated in a partisan race and have an R or D next to your name, well, then you're not a I don't understand how that is ambiguous, but that's fine if we feel and there has been issue, then we want to clarify it. So what we're saying here is you're basically making room for fusion ballot party stuff, which is basically what New York has, right? Like Larry Sharp's thing where he's got to be on the ballot in 4 different parties under 4 different headers. Is that what you're talking about when you say the
Yeah.
fusion ballot? Okay.
There's about 4 or 5 states that have fusion. Dr. Moulton
Okay.
might know all of them, but it's not just New York. Oregon has it.
Yeah, well, New York was the one that I'm most familiar with, and I was just using that as the example to make sure I understood. So that's fine. This really is just making it more obvious, and then giving that carve out for those fusion states where that may be necessary to do, because you got to play the game to win the game. Am I correct?
I'm sorry. I'm looking at the language here and I missed your question. Would you repeat it?
It's okay. So basically, we're making it clear that if the person has an R or D next to their name, you can't nominate them unless they're also on the ballot as the Libertarian Party affiliate, because it's part of the fusion balloting process.
Correct.
Right. So you're making a carve out for fusion balloting to allow them to play the game to win the game.
And clarifying what has been viewed to be ambiguous language.
Okay.
About
I'm good.
what a member of another party means.
Okay. All right. So I understand. Thank you.
Mr. Latham?
Yeah, I wanted to push back a little bit against the suggestion that affiliates that were doing fusion candidacies were violating our bylaws, because and again, the complexity here is every state does their elections different. But in Utah, and I guess it's because our affiliate was so small, we knew all of our members who were seeking fusion candidacies with other parties. So we knew they were members of our party and not necessarily under other parties. And just because they were nominated to also be candidates of those other parties doesn't make them, in my view, a member of those parties. And nobody's ever, to my knowledge, I mean, maybe they has complained and said that Utah was violating the national bylaws. Now, I will say, after we did that in the mid to late 90s, Utah did amend its laws to prohibit fusion. That's not really an option anymore, other than I think you could do it federally, and I'm waiting for the candidate with the money to challenge that on a federal level, because I think you could do it for Congress even if a state bans it. And the Utah Republican Party also amended its bylaws so that you can't be one of its candidates unless you're also a member of its party. So that kind of meant that we couldn't fusion with Republicans even if the law didn't ban it. Could do fusion candidacies with other parties. So I just again wanted to maybe again push back on the idea that states that were doing, or affiliates that were doing fusion candidacies, were necessarily violating the bylaws. But I do get that this member of another party language can be confusing, is subject to misinterpretation. So I think this proposal hopefully just kind of flips the analysis around on things that we can control as affiliates, rather than what other parties may do as to who's a member and who's not a member.
Thank you, Mr. Latham. Mr. Ruffo, did you intend to still have your hand up? I mean, Dr. Moulton. Okay, Dr. Moulton.
Yeah, I don't think that's what this does. This language does much more than that. This language inserts a requirement that you have to be a party member to be a candidate, which has never been the case in the past. It's going to substantially harm the ability of us to recruit candidates. My main problem with this is the end. It requires all of these things, and I think that it's way more than necessary to fix the problem, and it substantially harms our ability to elect libertarians, and substantially interferes with the autonomy of affiliates. Therefore, I have a substitute proposal, which I circulated on the list. I mean, honestly, I consider this proposal to be like an existential threat to our ability to recruit candidates. I'm so passionate about this. Like, I'm gonna have to spend thousands of dollars, conventioneering to shut this down because like this can't happen. We would lose probably 25% of our candidates in Pennsylvania if this passed. I don't know how many other states would lose candidates, but probably a lot. And that's like an underestimate because I mean it just makes it much harder to recruit candidates. Every single extra step you require of a candidate makes it harder. So if you require them to register Libertarian, if you require them to pay dues, if you require them to sign a pledge, and I've made it very clear in the past I'm no fan of the pledge. I think it's pretty clear from the historical record that the pledge is basically an anarchist purity test, and I think it's very coldish, and it hamstrings our ability to recruit people. I just think this is a really bad idea. I'll just give the example of Pennsylvania to give some specific examples. In Pennsylvania, if we do not have minor party status, then we can only put candidates on the ballot who are not registered as Republican or Democrat. They actually don't have to be registered Libertarian, but they can't be registered Republican or Democrat. Generally, we put people who are registered Libertarian, of course. If we do have minor party status, we have the ability to put Republicans and Democrats on the ballot as Libertarians. And where this comes up is I don't actively recruit Republicans or Democrats, but in the Moulton maneuver, I send out mailers to registered Libertarians. And what I would, I'm not sure if frequently is the right word, but it's come up many times. A household will get a letter where the husband will be registered Libertarian and the wife will be registered Democrat or Republican to vote in the primary, or vice versa. Generally, both spouses are politically active and lean in Libertarian, and the one who is not registered Libertarian will be interested in running and say, "Can I run?" And we generally welcome them when we're able to do so. It's also an impediment to get people to sign up as members. In our nomination process in Pennsylvania, it's up to the county parties. Well, the whole Pennsylvania bylaws have changed, but it used to be up to the county parties whether they nominated the candidates or not. And of course, they can ask for any sort of criteria, and they would often ask, are you a party member, and try to sign people up if they're not members. But it was not required. And we did have some candidates who were not party members. And in Pennsylvania, at least, there was no way to become a member without paying dues. So in the Pennsylvania case, paying dues would have required a financial outlay, which would have been an impediment to candidate recruitment. In the national sense, it is possible to become a party member without paying dues. So you can be a member of the party without being a sustaining member. However, in the past, national staff has strongly discouraged this because they wanted to collect as much money as possible. So in the past, historically, staff has buried the form where you could sign up as a member without giving money. I'm not aware of whether that's the case right now. Probably that's been fixed, but we never know what's going to happen with staff turnover in the future. So it could be an impediment in the future too. So even if we just require party membership, that may be hard to accomplish. So I just think that this is a bad proposal to require end. If someone was running with the Libertarian Party label, that's good enough for me. Then they've demonstrated they're Libertarian. So that really solves the running as Republican or Democrat question if they have the Libertarian Party label. My proposal, or my substitute proposal, would allow a second possibility, which is not having the Libertarian Party label, but and we talked on the list. I'm open to the to the nonpartisan language that Chair Harlos prefers. But my alternative proposal is either you run with the Libertarian Party label, or alternatively, you run with a nonpartisan label and you have one of three things also. And those three things are some indicator that you're a libertarian. Either you're a registered libertarian, or you're a party member, or you're a member of that state party affiliate. And I think that is much less restrictive than the proposal in front of us. It's something much more likely to pass, and it's something that would not hamstring affiliates. So I would like to move my substitute. Do you have my language, or should
Oh,
I?
I'm sorry. I thought what? Oh God, hold on. I have hot corners on my Mac, and every once in a while I flick my cursor over to the corner and it dims my screen. I hold one moment. I did have it on the screen and I didn't realize I wasn't sharing.
Okay.
It should be on the screen.
Okay. So if for A, where it says does not have a major party ballot line, you can substitute the language that you preferred, which I sent in the last email. I'm fine with that, which I think was something like, well, I can pull up the email to be sure. Sorry for not having it handy here. Oh gosh. I don't know if the secretary has the language.
I can't pull up my emails when we're in a
Okay.
meeting.
I will copy and paste it into the chat while someone else talks. Is that okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
And I believe I was next, then Mr. Seebeck and Mr. Latham. On the original, right now, technically, we are going to move to amending or perfecting the substitute, but debate kind of gets into both. I will just say that on the primary, I don't mind taking out is a member of the party or the affiliate party. I think Dr. Moulton makes good points that this can require a financial outlay and be somewhat opaque to people who aren't party insiders. I object strenuously, and I think the history of the party objects strenuously to the idea that there is something wrong with the pledge. That's not the reason why I'm amenable to this. I'm amenable to it because I don't want an affiliate whose board can raise the dues or do something funky with that. I'm fine with taking that out. However, I don't. Now, after taking that out, I just disagree that this affects meaningful candidate recruitment. And let me quantify meaningful, because some people are going to get upset. If someone, our candidates, we play like just getting someone to put their name on the line as a Libertarian Party candidate, whether they've shown any other commitment other than wanting to run, is some kind of badge of honor. And if someone doesn't want to register Libertarian, but they want to be an elected official in a partisan office, be mad. I don't want them as a candidate. If they can't show the minimum commitment to register with the party they are trying to get elected under. Now, partisan registration isn't available in every state, so it's only if available. But if we're just looking for warm bodies to fill the ballot, that does not advance the goal of a world set free in our lifetime, or whatever the language is now. It doesn't advance the statement of principles. And that brings up the part of this article in the bylaws that everyone misses, and they think it's somewhat disconnected. This says you can't endorse whatever, what we can argue about what the meaning is. But there's another sentence. No affiliate party shall take any action inconsistent with the statement of principles or these bylaws. Why isn't that sentence a separate article? It's because the two ideas are tied together. And someone who can't even register as libertarian, I don't think we can count on them. Now, of course, you might not be able to count on them either, but at least it's a little bit of a safeguard that they're actually libertarian, because our goal isn't just to get a warm body elected. It's to get an actual libertarian elected, not somebody who just slaps an L on their chest. Because if that's what it's going to be, why don't we just, now, maybe some people in this room would have been thrilled as punch if RFK wanted to run for our nomination. I would, and I know we're talking about presidential, but I'm trying to give a name that everyone would recognize. I would be appalled because he's not a libertarian. I don't care if you tattoo an L in the middle of your forehead. You're not a libertarian. And the purpose of this party is to run libertarians and get libertarian policies done. So, but second, Mr. Latham, I think, proved my point by disagreeing with the bylaws interpretation. I said it's ambiguous, but I can tell you on my years, at least on the LNC, it's been pretty, let's just say, if the LNC had decided that the fusion running they were looking for an excuse to disaffiliate, nearly everyone agreed it was a violation of the bylaws. They just looked the other way. Now, I understand not everyone agrees with this, but I think it's by far the super majority of the party that believes it's a violation of the bylaws. And the people who tend to not think it is are the people that have been in fusion states. But states that don't have fusion, nearly everyone thinks it's a violation of the bylaws. But that just proves that it's ambiguous. And the responsibility of a bylaws committee when there's an ambiguous bylaw is to amend the bylaws as soon as practicable. Well, this is the practicable time. Did you have that language, Dr. Moulton, yet?
I did. I put it in the
Oh,
chat.
let me see. I have such a hard time with
Oh, I
this.
thought I put it in the chat.
I don't have
No,
the chat
no.
up.
Well, Mr. Latham put my original language up, but I did want to substitute in unless the candidate unless the candidate A only has a nonpartisan ballot line end.
Okay. Can you read that? So you wanted A to say what?
A to say only has a nonpartisan ballot line end.
Okay.
I'm actually going to try to do a cut and paste job on what you're talking about there and put it in chat.
Well, I have it up on the screen.
Could
Do
I?
you? Because I don't see it. I see proposal QQ. The
Down at the bottom here.
there it
I see
is.
it on. I see it on her screen. May I make a very quick rebuttal, or should I just wait for my
No,
place
you
in
need to
line?
wait in line.
right.
So it were Mr. Seebeck's next, then Mr. Latham, then I have you, Dr. Moulton, then Mr. Roulette. Mr. Seebeck.
Okay, broad statement here. This kind of speaks in both directions. If you don't want to sign the pledge, get the hell out of the party. That pledge has kept this party from being designated a group by the government who wants to overthrow them and being named a terrorist group and a few other things. Some of us old timers remember what happened with the MEAC scenario post 9/11. We don't want to go back there again, okay? So if you're a candidate and you don't want to sign the pledge, we don't want you as a candidate. If you're a candidate, and I'm not a fan of fusion candidates, if you're not willing to sign the pledge and take that L label as a nominee, then go run under label. You can't play for two teams at the same time in this type of competition. It's that simple. Nonpartisan, different issue. We're not talking about that. But we're talking to partisan races where there's a party label attached to the candidate. You need to be a candidate for our party or somebody else, but not both. I've run for office 3 times, one nonpartisan, twice partisan. And I'll tell you right now, that label does mean something. And to dilute it with a fusion or to dilute it with however you want to label it to say not the time to pledge or whatever. No, we don't want that. Now, that being said, yeah, I recognize that there are some states where you can't have an L label on the ballot. Okay, it sucks. No argument. We all know that. We have to deal with it. It's an ongoing fight in the party. Those type of situations need to be addressed here, and I think both ways attach that. We have both national membership and we have state membership, and state membership can be a variation, whether there's a state central committee with dues or whether it's just a party registration to vote. It varies depending what state you're on. And I've been in both. So addressing those issues are the important angle of here. But we got to make sure, and yeah, they're going to say it's not a fad or a purity to anarchy purity test. It is a preservation of this party. And I can show you guys the security clearance forms that indicate the question: are you a member of an organization that advocates overthrowing of the government by violent means? That pledge specifically discounts that and keeps us out of trouble. That's a hill I'll die on, folks. But as far as these partisan candidates go, very simple. Remember the party. You're running on the party label. That's the only party label you're running on. If the party label isn't available, then we make accommodations for that. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Seebeck. Mr. Latham, I didn't understand you were next. Did you not want to talk right now?
No, I didn't think I was next. You can put me at the end of the line.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Moulton and then Mr. Roulette.
Yeah, 2 quick points. First of all, on the party registration, the way it works in Pennsylvania, and this may be unique to Pennsylvania, I don't know about other states, we do have partisan registration, but if you want to be a candidate, there is a deadline to register for the particular party, and that is at the start of the petitioning period for the major party candidates, which is March. We can recruit up to August. So people are not allowed to change their party registration. And specifically, they're not allowed. No one's allowed to change it at all a month before the primary. But if you want to be a candidate and you change your registration, that's a problem. Which we've had court challenges in the past because of that. So it's not even possible. Like the notion that we can find a candidate and say, okay, change to Libertarian. Sometimes that's not possible. The second point I want to make is with regard to the pledge. There's been this conflation with the pledge and some sort of idea that we're not going to overthrow the government or throw bombs or whatever. That's not what the pledge says. So this is like a bait and switch. The pledge has very clear lineage with the writings of Murray Rothbard and the writings of Ayn Rand. It is not an accident that they mirror the language of Ayn Rand and Murray Rothbard philosophically. So the notion that somehow accidentally came up and that we're going to interpret that as don't throw bombs is ridiculous. If
tell that to the government.
If
You
you
know,
really
stop. We're going to stop. Dr. Moulton, you have the floor.
My point is, if those want to defend the pledge as a do not overthrow the government, I'm perfectly fine with changing the pledge to do not overthrow the government. Just make it say that, but that's not what it says.
Mr. Seebeck, if you wanted to get in line, just rest assured I'm going to be addressing that. Mr. Roulette.
Okay, first I'd like to ask everybody if they could please stop talking about the pledge right now. I mean, this is an exciting debate for later, but it has nothing to do, or very little to do with what we're talking about. If we can save time by not having the pledge debate right now, I would appreciate it. Second, I would like to amend the substitute if possible.
Yes, Mr. Roulette.
Okay, I'm sorry, could you put it back up on the screen? I'm on my phone.
Oh, I thought it's not. I'm sorry, Zoom it's not kind to people with multiple screens. It should
There we
be.
go. Yeah, this amendment is for clarity. If it changes meaning at all, well, we can just dump it and it won't hurt my feelings. After the word candidate, please insert the word either and then a colon. In the blue section, yes. And then start a new paragraph. Oh. Yeah. Not at the end, but after the word either, please start a new paragraph.
Okay.
And then just tab the A over once. After the word, or before the number 1, start a new paragraph. Tab it over twice. I think you can see where I'm going. 2, yep. And then 3, yep. And then after B, that only gets 1 tab. Or before, you know what I'm saying. B, yep. New paragraph, but that only has 1 tab. So maybe Word sucks.
I think this isn't Word, but I think what you're trying to do, Mr. Roulette, is actually remove that B and make that all part of 3.
I thought that B.
No, he wants to align it with A.
Yeah, align B with A, please.
But it makes no
I
sense.
think that.
No, because it's a or.
It's a B.
It's either A or B.
Right. Then I'm not trying to debate I'm just saying what you're doing makes no sense, Mr. Roulette, right now at this.
I think it makes perfect sense.
Okay.
Although my
Makes sense to
suggestion
me.
would be, my suggestion if we do this would be to move the no affiliate party part, move the statement of principle sentence before this no affiliate party endorsed sentence.
I'm down with that.
Okay. It's gotten too complicated. What is being proposed at this point is a substitute for the substitute. We can do that, but all of this separate moving around and stuff, that's just out of order. That's not how amendments work. If we want to do a substitute for the substitute, we can do that, but then there's no more amendment and we immediately vote between the two.
I don't want to do a substitute for the substitute. I only want to insert the word either and make this easily readable list.
Okay. Then that other move can be done after we dispense with this.
Okay. I hope this is not controversial. I don't want to speak to it anymore.
Mr. Latham, you were on now, and never mind. You all see what's happening here. This isn't word sucking, it's Google sucking, but it's suckage. Mr. Latham, did you wish to speak to this amendment, or were you still in line when we're back to
No, well, just speaking to the substitute. So the other, and I put this in the chat, but the other problematic language I just see there that we ought to work on is the A1, a voter with the affiliate's registration. My concern is that I don't think it's the affiliate that registers voters. Of course, it's state or local governments that register voters. So I kind of get what we mean there. I think that's the intent, but I just think we got to make it more precise. So I've been just kind of sitting here trying to think of better language, but if people have better language, I think
and the primary motion, I think, has better language.
Oh, okay. So maybe we use something from there. So, all right.
You can take a look at it.
I wanted to point that out to folks.
Okay, so we're on the amendment to the substitute. I really, if the no affiliate party thing gets moved up, this will alleviate my concern. However, if it doesn't, and because it's not part of it, if it comes down to a tie, I will be voting against it because I have no assurances that that first sentence will get moved up. These are two connected thoughts, and I don't want a list separating these two thoughts. And that list makes no sense, and I'll say why. Oh, maybe it does. I see, but it's and is, I don't know. I have to be honest with you. I don't think the language itself is even without it turning into a list, is very smooth. I'm really used to reading complex bylaws, and each time I read it, I have to like stop and like, that meme of the lady with the calculations. That's what I feel like when I'm reading it. I'm going A equals X. I find it difficult. Maybe it's just me. I find it difficult. And Mr. Roulette, I respect what you had to say, but this is going to be a recorded meeting, and I feel as passionately about the pledge as Mr. Seebeck does, and I'm not going to let that go, what we said, unchallenged. I don't care what Murray Rothbard said or Ayn Rand said. Again, if we're arguing about what it means, I think the person who wrote it is probably the best interpreter of their own words, and the party has always interpreted it this way. Is the only meaning that we won't have violent revolution against the government? No. Obviously, it has a ideological meaning. But the primary purpose of the pledge, as stated by David Nolan, who put it into the bylaws, is up here on the screen, where David Aiken of Colorado wrote David Nolan and asked him what it meant. And what Dave said, now David Aiken gave the ideological explanation, and Mr. Nolan said that's a perfectly good well, let's do the whole thing. I want this on the record. What does it mean? And never mind. He talks about how people can lie, but that the purpose of this is that it's evidence that the LP is not a group advocating violent overthrow of the government. Mr. Seebeck did not pull that out of his rear. This is what the author of it said was the practical purpose of the pledge, because an ideological statement, you can't get into someone's mind. And then he talks about in the early 70s how Nixon had enemies lists. We are heading into that period of time right now. And Mr. Dasbach was able to point to the pledge to disavow Timothy McVeigh. I'm sorry, we need this to protect people in the party. And to say that it's some kind of anarchist blood oath, to me, is insinuating that all the minarchists that have joined the party in 50 years and signed it are either lying or so stupid they would walk into Wall's face first that they couldn't figure out what it meant. And I don't think we're smarter than all the people who have joined the party. It's not like we've had trouble getting minarchists to join the party. To me, this is just libertarian navel-gazing and pedantry to try to make this some kind of anarchist blood oath when David Nolan, who put it in the bylaws, wasn't an anarchist. And I don't think David Nolan was stupid either. Mr. Latham.
Oh, I found the language I was looking for. We've got the agenda up, by the way. So, but I put that in the chat.
I can't see the chat.
Okay. I'll read it. So the substitute language for that.
Well, we can't do that yet because we are 2 levels deep. A substitute is the first level of amendment, and we're on Mr. Roulette's amendment, which is the 2nd level. We have to dispose of Mr. Roulette's amendment before we can amend further.
Okay. No, I was just letting folks know that that language is available in the chat, but of course it's also available in the original.
Hey, Mr. Seebeck.
Yeah, thank you for what you said a second ago, but I have a question. Could you restate what we're debating here on this amendment to the substitute?
Certainly.
Just for clarity.
It is inserting the word either after unless the candidate and reformatting the conditions into a list.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any further debate on the amendment to the substitute? Dr. Moulton.
Yeah. I certainly have no objection to this. I think it makes it clear. I also support moving the last sentence before the first sentence, so that it flows better. But yeah, I'll vote yes for this. I think it's clear either way. This makes it a little bit clearer probably. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Moulton. Is there any further debate? I'm presuming an objection because even though I normally don't vote, I would be an objection. So, Ms. Arrowood, if you would take the roll, what we're voting on is inserting the word either after the word candidate and a colon, and breaking up the list that was in sentence format into a list format.
Arrowwood, I'm going to say yes. Mr. Roberson? I'll come back to him. Mr. Sazelski?
I'm gonna go with yes.
All right. Mr. Latham?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Dr. Moulton?
Yes.
Mr. Rowlett?
Yes.
Mr. Rufo?
Yes.
Mr. Seebeck?
Abstain.
Abstain, all right. And I'm going to return to Dave Roberson. Mr. Roberson, are you on mute perhaps?
I don't see him any longer. I don't believe he's still in the meeting, Madam Secretary. So if you could go to the next alternate.
Okay, the next alternate would be Data Logan, number 5. Data Logan?
I vote yes.
All right, sir. Madam Chair, at this point, we have 8 yeses, no nos, and 1 abstain.
I will not be voting.
All right. We have 8 yeses then, no nos, and 2 abstains.
Thank you, Ms. Arrowwood. So we're just going to make this blue to meld it in with the rest. Whoa, I messed something up. Oh, crap. Now, during the debate, Dr. Moulton, pardon me, why do I keep doing that? Had indicated that he did want to move a sentence.
I do. May I make that motion?
Yes, I think that it's appropriate now. Then I'll call on Mr. Latham for some after we dispose of this. So, Dr. Moulton?
Yeah, I would like to move the second sentence before the first sentence.
Would you like to speak to that?
I just think it flows better then, and there's no sort of disconnect between where we have the lettered and numbered list.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this? Is there any objection to this amendment? Seeing none, this objection.
Wait a second.
Excuse me, Mr. Seebeck. Sorry.
I'm trying to read it here. Okay, no objection.
Thank you. So seeing no objection, that amendment passes. Now I believe Mr. Latham had an amendment.
Yeah, I would just move that we replace that A1 with the language that we would just pull from the original. I've got registered to vote under the partisan designation of the affiliate party, comma, if available. excuse somebody.
So Mr. Latham is, that should one moment, let me just do this. So Mr. Latham is moving to strike from 1, a voter with the affiliate's registration, and insert registered to vote under the partisan designation of the affiliate party if available.
But
Go ahead,
point of
Dr. Bolton.
information, Mr. Latham, I don't think that if available is necessary in this context, since there's an or.
You are correct. Let's delete that.
And I would like
I guess
to
we still
speak-
need a or though, don't we? Or do we? Yeah. Would it
Yeah,
need affiliate party, comma, or? Yeah, I think
no.
that's what.
There wasn't an or before, so I don't see why you'd need an or now. Could the or, this is a list.
Well, maybe I'll need to have Mr. Moulton because I thought these 1, 2, and 3 were all in the alternative.
What 1, 2, and 3 are in the alternative. I guess there's 2 ways of doing it. You could have an or after each clause, or you could just have commas and
then an
an
or after 2.
This is after 2. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm good either way. Maybe I don't know if part of my amendment can be to just keep the or after the 2 and then remove it after 3 and then replace that comma with a period.
Yeah, I don't think there should be or well, so the one after 3 I think should be a semicolon or. So really that's that or is for the whole A clause. The whole A clause is or'd with the B clause. That's why there's the thing after 3. So probably that comma should be changed to a semicolon.
Okay, so that would be my amendment.
Well, yeah, grammatical changes we're just accepting unless somebody throws a fit.
But we remove that or after the semicolon, right?
Oh no,
it does stay.
I think the or's appropriate, but
yeah, I gotcha.
May I speak to the amendment?
Yes,
Madam
Dr.
Chair?
Moulton.
I have no objection to the amendment. I did look at the Chair Harless's original language that was made in conjunction with Mr. Latham when I came up with this proposal. I was trying to save words, and maybe in the course of saving words, I introduced something that wasn't clear. It's clear enough to me, but if this is clearer to people, I have no objection to this amendment.
Would anyone else like to speak to the amendment? Mr. Roulette?
Just formatting wise, designation should also be aligned with the rest of it. But yeah,
we're not worried about that right here. All formatting, just so you guys know, will be in conformity with the rest of the bylaws and the style of the rest of the bylaws. Google is not good with this. Anyone further? Is there any objection to this amendment to the substitute? Seeing none, we are back to the substitute. And are there any further amendments to the substitute? Or, well, yeah, it would be amendments. We're going to debate between the two when we're done perfecting both of them. Okay. All right.
You just want to make that a tiny bit like one font size bigger.
I'm sorry.
Unless you're trying to keep it all in the same line, that A1.
I'm not worrying about formatting here.
Right. Okay. I'm just worried about people reading who are trying to follow this online.
Are there any further amendments to the substitute? There will be another opportunity after we perfect the primary. Okay, we're going to move on to the primary. And I have an amendment to the primary, which is, because I didn't object to removing the requirement of them being a member, since that, for all the reasons that Dr. Moulton stated. So I am moving to strike A. These would then be renumbered. I'll do that if the amendment passes. So it would be, unless the candidate is not listed under any other partisan ballot line, unless the candidate is also listed under the affiliate party's ballot line and is registered to vote under the partisan designation of the affiliate party, if available. Mr. Seebeck.
I'm puzzled here. What would the effect of striking this out be in terms of what endorsing of a candidate? Does this imply that they can endorse a candidate who is not a member of the party?
Yes, which they already can do.
In a partisan race?
Yes. The original language is there to the left. Mr. Latham.
Well, and I just think this kind of gets to the interesting policy question we have here. I just, boy, I don't like requiring a candidate to be either a member of our party or an affiliate party. And I get that that's what we already have now. And I guess, I find myself just favoring the original fifth substitute. I just worry that this waters it down too much. And I guess we're just trying to find the Goldilocks standard here that we're, all comfortable with. So yeah, that's what I'm wrestling with.
Mr. Rufo?
I don't think I'm very comfortable with this. I don't, in neither of the states that I've lived in, could you even be on the ballot unless you were a party member, according to our state bylaws. So, from what I can recall, but not for nothing. Like, if there's like if somebody is this just opens it up to like, hey, I suck at being a Republican but I'm really a Republican and I want to come in and I want to use your tools because you already have an existing set of tools so that I can get in office, so that I can leverage this state and the power of the state to force my neighbors to live the way that I think is best for them to live. Because that's how I want to do it as a Republican, but I can't make friends in the Republican Party. And you guys are a smaller pond and I'm a bigger fish, so I'm going to come in and take over. I don't see how it's beneficial to allow people to come in and usurp things and take advantage of things that we built and that people before us built so that they can just be a Republican and have an L next to their name. I don't recognize, like, if we're going to play partisan politics, let's play partisan politics. If we're going to be open to just winning office and leveraging state power for our benefit, then let's be open and be the party that leverages state power for our benefit. Removing this language says, hey, we're just Democrats and Republicans, but we couldn't make it as Democrats and Republicans, so we decided to be a Libertarian instead. I don't think we should strike this at all, honestly.
Thank you, Mr. Rufo. I had been next. Whenever we're reviewing a proposal, I like to remind everyone of the reason we're looking at it. We're looking at it to cure an ambiguity. this, I think Dr. Moulton was right, added a requirement that didn't exist there before and goes way beyond the problem we were looking to solve. And if we want to solve that problem, we should make this as easy to pass as possible. And remember, this is minimums. State parties are still free to put that requirement in their own bylaws. And I hope they do. Colorado has it. This is minimums that national is going to dictate from on high, which should always be very narrowly tailored and leave it up to the states as to whether they want to require membership or not. States can always be more restrictive than the national bylaws. I agree with everything Mr. Rufo said. I just don't think it needs to be in the national bylaws, that this is a state thing. But I would actually be fine with it being in the national bylaws. But I want this ambiguity to be cleared. And if that's going to cause a stumbling block because of the issues Dr. Moulton raised, not having to do with the pledge, but having to do with an outlay of money, it's being somewhat difficult just to be a pledge signer at national. So I want the ambiguity to be fixed. I'm not willing to saddle it with too much, particularly when we're dealing with money. We're already adding the partisan designation if available. And to me, that's a non-negotiable to me. But this other one can be added by future bylaws committee or by state. So that's why I moved it, but I'm not going to cry if we keep it. I'm just trying to perfect the primary to where it be more acceptable to more people. Because if you don't like that that's not required, I'll just remind you, it's not in the substitute either. So this isn't hampering the primary over the substitute. It's putting them kind of on almost equal grounds, because party membership's not required in the substitute. It's one of multiple ors. Dr. Moulton.
Thank you. You made a lot of the points I was going to make. Nothing prevents states from having higher requirements, and they ought to. I would hope that states are picking candidates who are libertarian and identify with the Libertarian Party and are philosophically libertarian and have libertarian positions. All of those are things that we want, but we're not going to put all of those things in this bylaw. And I think party membership is much like that. It's something we want. Well, we all want to see as many party members as possible. We all want to see most, or if not all, of our candidates as party members, both of the state and national. That would be great. But I think what we're intending here is to set a minimum, to set a floor, and states can feel free to have higher requirements.
Thank you, Dr. Moulton. Mr. Latham?
Yeah, this is going to sound like a broken record. Yeah, Dr. Moulton's proposal basically allows for the same thing. And of course, our existing bylaws allow for the same thing. We can run candidates who don't need to be members of our national party or affiliate party. So I guess I find myself supporting this because we are clearing up that ambiguity. And in the future, if we feel like more is required, we can graduate that standard up a bit if we think that'll be helpful. So I find myself supporting this again.
Thank you, Mr. Latham. There is objection, as I can tell. I don't see any further debate. Ms. Arrowood, if you could take the roll. What we are voting on is striking A is a member of the party or the affiliate party from the primary motion, and then B and C will be re-lettered accordingly if it passes. Ms. Arrowood.
All right. Arrowwood, I'm going to say yes. Is Dave Roberson back?
No.
All right. Data Logan?
Yes.
Sizelski?
Yes.
Latham?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Moulton?
Yes.
Rowlett?
Yes.
Rufo,
No.
Seebeck,
No.
Madam Chair, at this point, we have 7 yes, 2 noes, and no abstains.
I will not be voting.
All right. Then the final vote is 7 yes, 2 no, and 2 abstain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry, that's 6 yes.
It passes. I have another amendment. Because we no longer have a list of 3, I am moving to strike the letters A and B, not necessary, because I think it's pretty clear cut without it. It would just say unless the candidate is not listed under another partisan ballot line, unless the candidate is also listed under the affiliates party's ballot line and is registered to vote under the partisan designation of the affiliate party, if available. Because there isn't 3 items, I don't think that A and B is necessary. Please don't make me do the strikeouts and stuff. I think we understand what the amendment is. Would anyone care to speak for or against? I already spoke for it. Mr. Latham.
I'll just the thing I'm looking at, and maybe we've solved it by removing what we just removed, is the if available part. Could someone just be saying that modifies the A section, and that's just what I'm looking at right now? I think it's okay, but I'm just meditating on it a bit there to see if that could be misconstrued that way.
I don't believe it can be. If this doesn't pass, I want to show you how it looks without these things. Well, there wouldn't be a comma because it's not 2 independent clauses. I think it's pretty clear that the if available modifies the second part of those dependent clauses. Mr. Latham.
So, see, I'm just thinking that second clause is, if available, is supposed to modify that. And is this one of these Oxford comma debates? Because
no, it's not.
I just think there should be a comma after that, after line. No,
it's 2 dependent clauses. 2 dependent clauses separated by a conjunction do not get a comma. 2 independent clauses. And the way you determine that is if you remove the and stick in a period, could the 2 clauses stand on their own without adding words? And the sentence is registered to vote under the partisan designation of the affiliate party. If available is a sentence fragment, therefore it's a dependent clause.
I do think there's an ambiguity. Because you have 2 unlesses there, right? And it's a little bit unclear if the whole end clause goes under the first unless or the second unless. To me, at least.
Okay, let me look at it. Unless the candidate's not listening. I see what you're saying. I'm trying to see how to fix that if possible. Would you think it's not unclear if the A and B remain?
I think it would be clear with the A and the B.
Okay,
yes, I think the A and the B actually help with that. So
okay,
they are functional.
I withdraw my.
As much as I like removing language.
yeah, and I think a comma would be just fine too. You wouldn't need to do the A and a B, but A and B makes it more clear.
All right, I withdraw my amendment. If there's no, well, is there any objection to withdrawing it? Does someone else wish to move that amendment? All right, we're going to pretend like that wasn't moved. I have no further amendments. Does anyone have any further amendments to the primary? Are there any further amendments to the substitute? Okay, seeing none, we're going to now, the motion before us would be, shall the substitute become the primary? So now we're debating between the two. I do have something to say here. I think the first one is just way cleaner. I have to tell you, my eyes still cross trying to read what all of those mean. And I feel like I need a flow chart. And we shouldn't be making this complicated. I think enough delegates are going to be very confused on the floor that it's just not going to pass. And if someone wants to split these into a list later on, let them go for it. I just want to fix this ambiguity and not put roadblocks in the way. Now, I understand there's another substantive difference where mine, or the primary, because it belongs to the committee now, does require partisan registration. Yes, that is a substantive difference. Putting that aside for one moment, it's just much cleaner. And while I am happier with the substitute having that no affiliate party thing up at the top, we only did that so it doesn't look weird and get disconnected from the rest of the thought. But that's actually not a great place for that. It's just really weird wording now. And it keeps the two together, but it's just better at the end, but you can't put it at the end with these lists. I just don't think it's necessary, particularly since I got rid of one of the three. Much cleaner, much clearer, doesn't require a whole bunch of explanation, and solves the problem. I urge that we vote down the substitute and then move to vote whether or not to adopt the primary. I don't recall who was first, so we're just going to go to Mr. Latham, then Dr. Moulton.
I was just going to ask if we could have a side by side, but yeah, right now I'm favoring the original.
I can put it down here at the bottom if this helps. Just copy this from here. So that's about as side to side as I can get. Dr. Moulton.
Yeah, I still favor the substitute. I think substantively, it gets us closer to the ideal condition that we should have in the bylaws. That said, I no longer think the original motion is like an existential threat. It would be annoying to some parties, but it's not nearly as bad as it was before. So, I mean, I don't think I would lobby hard against the original, like in convention, anymore. I still prefer the substitute. I think it reads cleanly, in my opinion, at least. So I would encourage you all to vote for the substitute. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Moulton. Would anyone else like to speak? Seeing none, we will move to a roll call vote. The vote that is before us is, shall the substitute motion become the primary motion? If that passes, the primary goes away, and then we vote on whether or not to adopt the substitute. If that fails, the substitute goes away, and we vote on whether or not to adopt the primary. So we are getting to a resolution here. If everyone is clear what we are voting on, Madam Secretary, if you could call the roll. And I have one aside. Everyone on this committee should be experts at substitutes, which everyone knows is my fetish. When you leave this committee, it will make you skilled in ways that most people in the party are not. Ms. Arrowwood.
Arrowwood, I'm going to say no. Bracco, and it's replaced by
Data Logan, I believe.
Data Logan. Yes, I didn't know if Roberson had returned. Data Logan.
I vote no.
You vote no. All right. Sizelski.
No.
Latham,
No, I could support both though.
Martin,
No.
Moulton,
Yes.
Rowlett,
Yes.
Rufo,
No.
Seebeck,
No.
Madam Chair, at this point, we have 2 yes, 7 no's.
I will not be voting.
All right. So our total then is 2 yes, 7 no, 1 abstain.
Thank you. So the substitute fails. The primary remains the primary. When we're at this point, the only amendments that are permitted are additions, which means I can't remember if it's both to the beginning and the end, but I don't think anyone has any. But I'm going to give it a moment just in case there are additions. Otherwise, I'm going to ask if there's an objection to adopting the primary as the recommendation. There is an objection. So we're going to move to a roll call vote. The motion before the committee is adopting this language as the recommendation of the committee. Ms. Arrowood, whenever you're ready, if you would take the roll.
All right, Arrowood, I'm going to say yes. Data Logan,
Yes.
Sizelski,
Yes.
Latham,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Moulton,
No.
Rowlett,
Nope.
Rufo,
Yes.
Seebeck.
No.
All right.
Madam Secretary, can I amend my vote?
Yes,
Who is this?
Mr. Rufo.
Rufo.
Oh, all right. Yes, sir.
Can you please change me to an expressed abstention?
All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yes. Two no's. Madam Chair, at this point, I believe we have 5 yes, 2 no. I'm sorry.
There were 3 no's.
There were 3 no's.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's a 3. 3 no's and 1 abstain.
I will not be voting. It passes. Okay, we are moving. You know, we never, because I put it up ahead, we never approved the minutes. Are there any further corrections to, or any corrections, because I can't remember if there were any at all.
No.
All right, seeing no corrections to the minutes, those are passed. Now, we interrupted a motion last time, which we've got 15 minutes. We're going back to JC decisions are final, which we left off on last time. And lively debate just over this small section here. I think we defeated all the amendments. Am I correct? All I have is this language right here as where we left off.
I think that's right.
Yeah. We
Yes.
didn't come to any kind of agreement. So it's open for further, well, for amendment and debate. Mr. Latham.
I'll just offer this discussion. I thought the only outstanding piece of business was Mr. Bracco had suggested some language. I went and looked at the video of the last meeting, and just in our list of discussion, that language just seemed to be unnecessary. So I wouldn't be moving that language. So I think we're good to go on this. To clarify that, I think what the intention was you can't take 2 bites at the apple, and that just, I think, Madam Chair, you just indicated that was kind of already the lay of the land anyhow, so we didn't need to make that expressly stated in this bylaw.
I'm trying to catch up mentally.
No, me too, but
The original language was at the next regular convention. With it being at either of the two next, I think you can get 2 bites at the apple. So if I said otherwise, my opinion is changed. Just looking at it, you can try at one convention, and if you fail, you didn't rescind it or overturn it. Because nothing actually happened, a failed vote isn't an action. It appears that there would be another opportunity. I believe that is why I opposed the next 2 to begin with. Mr. Latham.
okay, well, so if that's the case, one solution that Mr. Bracco offered was language I put in the chat.
Can't see the chat.
Oh, I'll read it aloud. It's once a vote for reconsideration or rescission or overturning has happened, comma, you can't have another one. I mean, that's obviously
Okay,
poorly worded.
Can we, for one thing, it's not a reconsideration. Reconsideration is very time limited. That's completely irrelevant. So we're not going to have that. But
that's at least the sentiment that he expressed. And let me add this. I think part of the discussion was, even if you are going to go that route, you're still going to have to get, I think our discussion said a 2/3 vote to even bring it up. So that's a pretty high threshold. So that seems fairly protective of, taking multiple shots on goal, as they say. So I think it's not necessary to add that additional language, and just maybe refreshing some people's memory. I know the original proposal just had one convention. I moved the amendment to make it the next 2 because I thought 1 was too short, indefinite was too long, and 2 regular conventions seemed to be a reasonable window in which to revisit or overturn those decisions.
Mr. Martin?
Yeah, I wouldn't move this, but somebody else could. Change the word either to one. The word one.
That doesn't fix it.
That's all I have.
Okay. Let me explain why that doesn't fix it. You can only rescind or overturn something once. So that's just saying you could only do the thing once. It doesn't say you can't try to do the thing more than once. Once you succeed, you've succeeded. Then it's no longer a judicial committee decision. It's a decision of the convention.
Gotcha.
since we don't have any pending amendments, I'm going to speak. With it being the next two, I'm opposing my own amendment. This defeats the purpose. When an amendment goes to the point that you're talking with up to 4 years, this is to make things settled as soon as practicable, which is the next regular convention. Extending it out into 2, when you have vastly different bodies, people can campaign for the next 2 years on that and just throw the party into an uproar, which was the whole thing that was looking to be avoided. Extending it out past 1 defeats my purpose. If it comes down to voting where my vote would count, I am going to be opposed to my own motion because it got amended beyond, it defeated my intent. Anyone further? And by the way, if it passes, I might consider signing on to a minority report. That makes it the next one. Mr. Ruffo.
Forgive me if we already spoke about this. I had to step away for half a second there. Is this a version that we amended to arrive at?
Yes.
Okay.
It used to just say, it was very minor. Well, in meaning, it's not minor, but in complexity, it was minor. The original proposal said, or overturned except by delegates at the next regular convention.
That's what I remember it saying. That's why I was a little thrown off.
Why'd you shut the light off, Wayne? Did you
Wayne, turn on the lights.
Do you have anything further, Mr. Ruffo?
No, I don't remember how I voted on this, but in hindsight, I'm not really a fan of this either. So
Thank you. Mr. Martin?
Yes, is there a way to get the original back on the floor as a substitute or something, parliamentary wise?
Ms. Arrowood, on the minutes for who voted, what was my vote on?
Hold on.
Did I vote on the amendment?
Okay, is this,
It was striking at, it was adding at either of the next 2 or something to that effect.
okay, hold on. I think it was the second to the last vote. Is that correct?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
It's right here. Debate. Where am I? I abstained. Okay.
Okay.
So
Anything further on the amendment? Arrowood, yes. Rocco, yes. Sazelski, no. Harlos, abstain. Latham, yes. Martin, yes. Molman, abstain. Rowlett, yes. Rufo, no. Seebeck, yes. So it was adopted 6-2-2.
okay, so anyone who voted yes or abstained can move to reconsider. That's the only way to get it back on the floor. I don't remember who asked that question. Was it Mr. Martin? If it
Yes,
was,
so moved.
okay, so Mr. Martin is moving to reconsider the vote, which, pulling this back up, changed it from the original language and added, let me look at the minutes. I'm gonna put what we're reconsidering up here on proposal Z. So this is the motion that passed. And we're moving to reconsider it, which means we'll take a vote again on it. Well, first we're going to vote on whether or not to reconsider. And if the reconsideration vote passes, then we vote again on it as if it was moved for the first time. Debate on the reconsideration can go into the substance of the underlying question. So hopefully if a reconsideration passes, you move immediately into a vote on the item because you can debate it fully right now. Mr. Martin, would you like to speak in favor of reconsideration?
Well, I just think that this matter is sufficiently important to get it on to get it into our report, and I think this is the only way to do that. So that's all I have.
Mr. Silzowski.
Yeah, I initially was going, well, you mentioned potentially doing a minority report on that, so I was gonna initially talk on, ask some questions on that, but with this motion to reconsider, I'm in full support of reconsidering this. I opposed it the first time. I thought it was better to time limit it to the next convention, and my position hasn't changed on that. So I support this this reconsideration, and we'll be voting in the same way I have.
Thank you, Mr. Silvestri. Mr. Rufo?
That might be an artifact. I'm sorry.
Okay, so I had my hand next. I abstained, but if I had to have voted, I would have been a no for all the reasons I already stated. It defeats the purpose, and I'd rather have nothing than this. I want to, if the committee will indulge me, the chair would like to just say something briefly on minority reports, since that could still be a consideration here. Minority reports are, well, they're not necessarily a right of the committee because the convention might not hear them the way they do at platform. We are looking to fix that. However, when I mean it's a right, it doesn't mean you have a right to have it heard, but you do have a right on the committee to make it. However, we already have so many proposals and limited time. I would urge the committee to avoid minority reports wherever possible, even though you can do them. I would never tell you can't. And try to arrive on something that will, everyone might not be thrilled, but they'll be thrilled enough not to make a minority report. However, again, you can do it. This is one where I would seriously consider a minority report if we don't reconsider and vote down this amendment. However, that is, of course, up to the committee. Mr. Latham.
And I just want to reprise, this committee voted 6-2. Now maybe we'll be voting 5-3. Who knows? On this, the problem with having it just at the next convention is you might have a judicial committee decision that happens right in front of a convention. And if you miss your opportunity at that convention to correct the judicial committee decision, then you've lost your opportunity to fix that. So I think, again, that was the rationale behind extending it just to the next convention. And I will say, just as a sitting judicial committee member, I feel strongly enough about this that I would favor a minority report if we just stuck on the next convention, because I just think it's a problem for issues that might be timed to land at the judicial committee just before a convention, which is too quick for anyone to do anything about it. And then just the other hurdle, just to be thinking about it, this kind of stuff, as we kind of talked about on the list, reconsidering a judicial committee decision probably is not going to show up in a regular convention agenda. So it would be just super difficult to get enough support to bring it up, and amend the agenda to take up some judicial committee decision. So I think you're going to need at least 2 conventions if there's, something that's so problematic that they need to revisit it. So that's why I just think the next convention is just too short for accomplishing this.
And I would say in opposition, if you're going to do it the next two conventions, you can have a judicial committee decision within the first week of a new LNC term, and then you're dealing with this in the party for 4 years. So it's, what devil do you want? And the fact is, this is codifying something. It's never going to be perfect. And someone can complain 2 years isn't enough. That, if we're going to time limit it, let's time limit it. Otherwise, putting it in here as two, how to word this? Sometimes libertarians don't come up with something unless it's suggested to them. When you're going multiple years out, and in this case, perhaps up to 4, at that second convention, if it wasn't in the bylaws suggesting to people to revisit the wounds past, they might not even think of it because it's far enough in the past. But when you say to a libertarian, do you want to do this? Like, libertarians are just, well, I think maybe all people are like that. You might as well be telling people to drag things on. If there is a huge appetite for a minority report putting this through, I'll urge everyone just to vote the whole thing down. It's not worth it. I would rather us not say anything then, because honestly, I don't think it's an existential threat. I think it's a disaster to put in the next two conventions. Trying to lower my hand. Any further debate on the reconsideration? We are at time, but because it seems like we could be getting to a vote on this, though we normally don't want to extend time, is there anyone who's looking to move to extend time at all? Or this will go over to the next meeting? Mr. Roulette.
I'll move to extend for this one vote.
And you want the vote on well, there's 2 votes tied up in. Let me ask a clarification, Mr. Roulette. Moving to reconsider then just puts us back to voting again?
Fair enough. And I'll move to extend until we are done with this particular issue.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get clarity. This particular issue meaning the reconsideration and a potential vote on the amendment, or this issue meaning the proposal?
The first one.
Okay, so dispensing with the reconsideration and any votes that become necessary, if any, because of the reconsideration.
Yeah.
Is there any objection to Mr. Roulette's motion? Seeing none, would anyone else like to speak to the reconsideration? I see there is objection. Ms. Arrowwood, if you could do the roll, what we are voting on is a yes vote. Will bring back up the Latham proposal as if this amendment was proposed again, though we already did debate the merits. You still could debate it again, but I think the opportunity was here now. A no vote leaves this as the main proposal, and we start up here just like we started up here at the 15 minutes ago. So, Ms. Arrowwood.
Right. Arrowwood, I'm going to say no. Data Logan.
No.
Szalski.
A yes is to reconsider, right?
Yes.
I vote yes.
Right. Latham.
No to reconsideration.
Martin.
Yes.
Moulton.
Abstain.
Roulette.
Nope.
Rufo.
Yes.
Seebeck, Mike Seebeck,
No.
Madam Chair, at this point, we have 3 yes, 5 no, and 1 abstain. Do you care to vote?
It would not make a difference, and it requires 2/3 to reconsider, so it would definitely nowhere close to make a difference. So the reconsideration fails, and the motion to extend time is exhausted. If the committee will indulge me, I do think, unless somebody has amendments, we're ready for a vote on the proposal. I'm moving to extend time to take a vote on the proposal unless there are further amendments, in which time we'll just do it next time. But I don't see any further amendments. I'd like to get this proposal out of the way. So I'm moving to extend time just long enough to take a vote on this proposal as it is on the screen, which is as amended since the reconsideration failed. Is there an objection to that brief extension of time to take a vote? Seeing none, Ms. Arrowood, if you could take the, Mr. Sazelsky?
Just a question here. For me to potentially, put a minority report in on this, do I need to vote against the entire proposal, or?
No, you do not.
Okay,
This is a matter of controversy. However, that's the precedent that was set by prior chairs, and I'll tell you that I will certainly allow it as bylaws committee chair. You can vote however you like.
okay. Thanks.
You're welcome. So a yes vote will adopt this as the proposal of the committee. A no vote just makes it go away. And we don't have any proposal regarding this if the noes prevail. Ms. Arrowood.
Arrowwood, I'm going to vote yes. Data Logan,
Yes.
Sazelsky,
Abstain.
Latham,
Yes.
Frank Martin,
No.
Moulton,
No.
Rowlett,
No.
Rufo,
No.
Seebeck,
Yes.
Madam Chair, at this point, we have 3 yes, 4 noes, and 1 abstain.
That's not right. That
That's
only
not
adds up
right.
to 8.
No, 1, 2, 3, 4 yes, sorry. 4 yes, 4 no, and 1 abstain at this point.
I vote no to make it fail. So this proposal fails. All right, we will be adjourning. I'll keep the room open for a little bit, and after the adjournment, going to just speak briefly through the rest of the agenda if anyone wants to hang out for that, but we've already extended time. I'm not going to belabor it while everyone's required to be here. Before we adjourn, Mr. Roulette had his hand raised.
It's after adjournment. That's
Okay,
fine.
we are adjourned at 9:06 Mountain.